Implementing the National Development Strategy requires good financial management that can bring out issues of transparency and accountability. This statement was said at one time by the Minister of Finance and Economic Development, Professor Mthuli Ncube. And it is in this light that today we would like to talk about the role of accountants in order for them to assist government in realizing the National Development Strategy and Vision 2030. My name is John Masugu, and I welcome you to Economic Forum, where we discuss various issues affecting our economy in Zimbabwe. These can be issues to do with agriculture, with mining, with tourism, education, and other aspects of life. We discuss them here in order to see how they can help us develop economically. And our guest today is the president of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Zimbabwe, and that's Brice Musendo. Well, Brice, I would like to welcome you to Economic Forum, and it is a pleasure to be talking about your profession and how you, as chartered accountants, are contributing to the development of the country. So what has been your role so far? Because we mainly see you in the private sector than we see you in the government sector. In fact, at one time, the Permanent Secretary for Finance once remarked that at one time there was only one chartered accountant. So tell us about what the chartered accountants have been doing to assist government in terms of accountability, transparency, and also having, proper accounting systems.
You would appreciate that we've got the IPSAs, which are the accounting standards for public sector.
This is what is IPSAS in full?
International Public Sector Accounting Standards.
And it was actually adopted by government.
Yes.
Through a statutory instrument.
Yeah, that was done, and the implementation was effective from the 1st of January 2023. What we have done in terms of the contribution was that as part of the institute, we launched a qualification that aligns to that, which also serves accountants in the public sector. In addition to that, we have been working with the government in terms of making sure that everything is standardized. You would have been aware that the government launched what we call a financial reporting manual, which was also collaboration between the government and the institute in terms of standardizing the accounting practice to align with the international accounting standards for the public sector. In addition to that, we have been running various trainings as part of just upskilling the various individuals within the public sector, whether it's local government, parastatals, or even central government, to make sure that they are up to date in terms of the implementation, or they are prepared to implement the standards. That is what we have been contributing so far, and that's.
Let's go deeper into the accounting standards. And these are for the public sector, and you also have some for the private sector. What is it that is contained in the public sector accounting standards that is very important in your work and also in the contribution that you make to government?
Before the public sector accounting standards, the accounting approach was always cash accounting, which means that anything that we were incurring, we were expensing. As such, it's difficult to then understand the assets that the assets and liabilities that we have. There comes in the international accounting standards, which moves from cash accounting to accruals accounting. What that means is that we will be able to recognize assets as and when we pay for them, liabilities as and when we incur them. As such, that would increase accountability in terms of the assets that have been purchased and that are available within the public sector. Is from a cash accounting perspective, you don't have a balance sheet, and therefore you don't know what assets you have, what liabilities you have, and that was the sole purpose of moving to the international accounting standards.
Some have said that these standards change rapidly and you have to catch up with them. Are you managing to do that?
The change, I would say, it's not as rapid as people would say. There are changes indeed, but the changes are not as rapid and revolutionary. Usually, accounting standards change on a need basis. We've got the accounting standard boards which look into the circumstances, and they have to adjust depending on the circumstances and scenarios that happen. So depending on the circumstances and scenarios, that's where we see changes. But in terms of the standards themselves, the changes are not revolutionary.
Now that they're international, how do you ensure that these standards may be devised some way but do not fit into our situation?
We are contributors. As the Institute, we do contribute in terms of standards, accounting standard setting. And our contribution actually stems from our experience and our practices. So when you see the accounting standards, there would be a contribution that would have come from the Institute. Whenever accounting standards are being set, there is always a consultation, and we are part of that consultation as part of the International Federation of Accountants.
That's Brice Musendo. He is the president of the Institute of Chartered Accountants, Zimbabwe. We are discussing the role of chartered accountants in public sector accounting, which the minister has said they would want to keep on improving so that over the years it will be much better than it has been from what we sometimes hear from the Auditor General. So join us in the second segment of Economic Forum. Well, chartered accountants as well as other accountants are working in a multi-currency environment, which is sometimes characterized by hyperinflation and other problems related with that. And today we are discussing the role of chartered accountants in our development, and we have the pleasure of hosting the president of the Institute of Chartered Accountants in Zimbabwe, and that's Brice Musendo. Yeah, that issue regarding the multi-currency system, are you managing as accountants, and how are you reporting your books fairly so that they are a true representation of what will be happening on the ground?
I think the introduction of the new currency, the ZIG, was a welcome relief.
It's rescued you.
Yeah. Was a welcome relief because it was indeed a challenge, accounting under hyperinflation as well as dealing with the exchange rates was always a challenge. I think from back in 2019, where we had a 1:1 exchange rate, which necessarily wasn't in full compliance with accounting standard, meant that a couple of our clients would have had a qualification around compliance with international accounting standards. That said, accounting under an inflationary environment is always a challenge, in that it's always difficult to keep up to date in terms of the factors for inflation. Yeah, they are always a challenge. And in addition to that, people just understanding their accounts from period to period, given the inflationary environment, it was also a challenge. I found it a challenge trying to understand the accounts which were inflationary adjusted, and I think I was not alone in that situation. So I think the introduction of the ZIG was a much welcome solution to the problem, and going forward we hope that the stability in the currency would then eliminate all these challenges, including the inflationary accounting, which was a challenge for most of our members.
And when you talk about these things, you are not working alone as chartered accountants.
Yeah.
You are working with others who have obtained qualifications differently and so forth.
Yeah.
How do you ensure that you fully understand and go forward together without any problems?
Yeah, no, that is the role of the Institute. We work with the regulators, the PAB, our regulators. We also provide guidance to our members in practice in terms of how best to handle some of these challenges.
I mean, even others who are not your members, but are accountants.
Yeah, we do publish papers which are also, besides being available to our members, are also quite welcome guidance for most of members practicing accounting, whether in industry or within government. So it was a challenge, but we were always working hand in hand with our regulator, with our practitioners, and the general public, just to make sure that they are accounting for things appropriately and correctly.
Yes. And how have you addressed the concern of the permanent secretary, where you are not deploying enough chartered accountants because there is a specific, skill that is required from you, and there was only one of your member within the whole government? Now, has that been addressed?
Yeah, no, that is surely
even in all local authorities.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, that is been addressed. I can confidently say we have, I think, about more than 10 members of our chartered accountants who are in parastatal. Within the local and central government, we are training people with our new qualification, which is the public sector accountant. And so far we have had 33 members who have successfully completed the qualification. And at the moment we have got about 312 who are undergoing the qualification as we speak. So we are alert to the issue in terms of the skills required to properly account for things under the new international accounting standards for public sector, and we have done our part as the institute to make sure that people are trained, are qualified, and ready to implement.
Yes. In recent weeks, we have been reading and also hearing about the Auditor General's report. In fact, every year when that report is out, it brings out some shocking results, interesting, developments and so forth. And one of the issues was that some of the public bodies were not actually submitting their accounts properly, and including some of the local authorities and not meeting the deadlines, and also compliance issues being compromised. What is the reason with all this capacity building that you're carrying out?
Yeah, no, I think the real challenge was obviously the lack of skills. And what we are doing in terms of the qualification itself, the training that we have made available to all the government institute, whether it's local, central, or even parastatal, would help in terms of addressing that anomaly. Going forward, I've briefly touched on the financial reporting manual that was launched by the minister at the beginning of 2023 as part of the standardization of the accounting process. And one of the challenge that was always there was the cash accounting, which I had alluded earlier, in terms of lack of accountability, because we don't see what assets are available, we don't see the liabilities. So all that would actually help in terms of address the concerns that were raised by the Auditor General, and the role that we are playing in terms of capacitating the public sector would also help in terms of ensuring that the necessary skills are sort of available within the relevant sectors.
Yes, and issues of fraud, of corruption and everything, we hear reports here and there, while you have audited some of these institutions and so forth. Where are the loopholes?
Yeah, no, I think the biggest loophole was the cash accounting. And there was no accountability. Once something has been paid for, expensed, no one would care to trust where it is, whether it's available. Now we have got accruals accounting. Everything is accounted for. We would see an asset register of what's available, and we can track it back. With cash accounting, there was an opportunity. There was always an opportunity. That opportunity or loophole is now being closed by accruals accounting, and hopefully going forward, we won't see more of those things happening. And if they do happen, we've got a record to refer to and bring those to light.
That's Brice Musendo, who is the president of the Institute of Chartered Accountants in Zimbabwe. We are discussing the contribution that is made by chartered accountants and others in the accounting field towards assisting government in realizing a proper financial management going forward in national development strategy and the realization of our Vision 2030. So join us in the third and final segment of Economic Forum. The professionalization of the accounting profession in the public service is one thing that the Minister of Finance and Economic Development has been hammering about, so that there are better standards. And my guest here, Brice Musendo, who is the president of the Institute of Chartered Accountants in Zimbabwe. You just mentioned a small figure, 33 for the public service. Isn't that too small a figure to realize what the minister is looking forward to?
It is a low number, but what I can say is obviously when you implement something new, there is always a challenge in terms of people getting used to the new ways of doing things. So is our exam. We are not looking to just push numbers. We still aspire to have that quality. We want to produce accountants who are capable and who are able to implement. Whilst the progress has been a bit slow, I think as we get used to implementing the standards, more people would be used to the new way of doing things. And as I said, we have got in the pipeline 312 public sector accountants who are training to be fully qualified under the program, and we are overseeing that program. Progress is being made, and we are doing everything we can to assist these students who are going through the programs to make sure that they see through the qualification. So 33 is low, but 300 is in the pipeline. It's quite a good number. I would like to focus on that number rather than the 33.
Yes. Probably you can just briefly tell the viewers what exactly is expected of an accountant, in order to improve all these things.
Yeah. No, an accountant should be able to understand the international accounting standards and apply them. So it is quite clear that we would like fair and true accounting reporting, and I think doing it correctly means that people are able to understand and apply the accounting standards as they are meant to be applied, and our training does exactly that. We train people to be able to have the knowledge as well as to be able to apply, and that would give the government the required transparency and accountability under the financial reporting manuals.
And how do you integrate these standards with those that are required by maybe those who assist us with funding and other things, who also want a certain type of reporting? How do you work together?
I think the beauty of the international accounting standards, including for public sector, is that it standardizes everything for everyone. And you tend to see that funders would always like us to comply with a specific recognized reporting framework. Yeah. And for us, it is the international accounting standards for the public sector. And that is the framework that the government has chosen to pursue and implement within Zimbabwe, and that is the standard that we would refer to when we are reporting. And I think our funders would appreciate more if we are complying with the international accounting standards rather than our own standards.
Yes. So what is the accounting environment like? Because in recent years and months, we have read about some of your colleagues in the global accounting firms actually exiting Zimbabwe and leaving that work to be done by locals alone. And you were quoted, when asked about that in other press, that it's a blessing in disguise. Take it from there.
Yeah, no, I think for me, I clearly say that it was an opportunity for local firms. I think the challenge we had, obviously, under an inflationary environment, and we have got various qualifications due to exchange rates. Some of these firms did not gear themselves up or were not prepared locally. They didn't have the resources, and they depended on central resources, whether it was regional resources, which made it difficult for them from an operational perspective to then sustain their operations under those environments. As such, they decided to leave. But we've got local firms who were very much capable and had the necessary resources and were geared up to the challenges of today with their local technical teams. In regards to the firms that are leaving, for me as well, it's an opportunity because some of the firms that have left local partnerships. You might have heard of Deloitte leaving, but at the same time, the staff or the partners who were Deloitte are still here. They are just operating under a different name, and nothing has changed. Even to the investor, in the eyes of the investors, they see the same people that they've dealt with. It's just under a different name. So from an investor confidence perspective, I don't see any issues because it's business as usual. It's the same partnership, serving the local people with the local knowledge and expert. So for me, it is indeed a blessing. In addition to what we have seen in terms of the departures, we also know that we have increased the number of global network firms. We've got other firms such as Mazars, BDO, which is actually part of a global network. So there are global networks who still have confidence in Zimbabwe and the Zimbabwe economy.
Well, that's Brice Musendo. He is the president of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Zimbabwe. And today we were discussing the role of accountants in national development, in particular in working with the government towards realizing the national development strategy going on to Vision 2030. If you'd like to get in touch with us, you can do so on the numbers that are showing on your screen. And if you'd like to engage with us here on Economic Forum, you can also do that on the social media platforms that are showing, and there we can then interact, including people like Brice Musendo here, to explain further some of the issues that have been raised. If you have missed some of the episodes of Economic Forum, you can actually watch them on our YouTube channel, which is Economic Forum Zimbabwe. So on behalf of Brice Musendo, our guest for today on Economic Forum, and the production team, this is John Masuku wishing you happy viewing.